In this module, we will be discussing the anatomy of a nephron. The nephron is a functional unit of the kidney, and each kidney is made of approximately 1 million nephrons packed tightly into the kidney. For some background, we will briefly touch on some gross anatomy. In the cross-section of kidney, we can see the renal cortex, which is the outer layer of the kidney. The inner layer is called the medulla, which is made of triangle-shaped pyramids. Nephrons pass through the renal cortex and medulla. After urine is made by the nephrons, it passes through ducts called the minor and major calyces. Urine then passes through the renal pelvis and ureter as it makes its way to the bladder and urethra to exit the body. Let us zoom in to better understand the relationship of the nephron within the kidney. While there is some variability, most glomeruli are located in the cortex, and the loop of Henle extends into the medulla. The nephron filters blood and produces urine. Let's zoom in on the glomerulus for a closer look. To show the direction of blood flow, we will use a white arrow. First, an afferent arteriole brings blood to the structure of capillaries called the glomerulus. Blood then exits the glomerulus through the efferent arteriole. A structure called Bowman's capsule surrounds the glomerulus, highlighted here. Fluid that is filtered from blood into Bowman's capsule is referred to as filtrate. Let's zoom out to look at the whole nephron again. After the filtrate enters Bowman's capsule, it flows to the proximal convoluted tubule. Next is the U-shaped portion, which is called the loop of Henle. The loop of Henle is divided into parts: the thick descending limb, the thin descending limb, the thin ascending limb, and the thick ascending limb. After the loop of Henle, the filtrate moves on to the distal convoluted tubule. The final portion of the nephron is called the connecting tubule and collecting duct. Now that we have discussed the different parts of a nephron, we will consider some key anatomic relationships. First, different parts of the nephron are located in the renal cortex and renal medulla. As mentioned earlier, the loop of Henle reaches down into the medulla. In addition, the collecting duct has two sections. The cortical collecting duct is situated in the renal cortex. The medullary collecting duct is in the renal medulla. Urine passes through the cortical and distal collecting duct to the calyces on its way out of the body. Next, we will briefly discuss the vasculature of the nephron. The efferent arteriole forms a capillary network that surrounds the proximal tubule, distal tubule, and loop of Henle. The capillaries surrounding the proximal and distal tubules are called peritubular capillaries. The capillaries that surround the loop of Henle are called the vasa recta. These capillaries are both the blood supply to the nephron and play an essential role in electrolyte exchange and urine concentration and dilution. We will cover this in greater depth in future modules. Finally, most of us are accustomed to viewing the nephron in this orientation, which shows the glomerulus, proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, and collecting duct, progressing from left to right. However, it is important to note that the orientation of the nephron is such that the distal section of the thick ascending loop of Henle, prior to becoming the distal convoluted tubule, is strategically located in close proximity to the afferent arteriole. This anatomic relationship is important to highlight, as the afferent arteriole and distal section of the thick ascending loop contain specialized cells that interact and form the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Let's zoom in. Here, we can see the afferent arteriole, and distal thick ascending loop of Henle in cross-section. The afferent arteriole has modified smooth muscle cells called juxtaglomerular cells, and the distal thick ascending loop of Henle has specialized cells within a region termed the macula densa. Together, these cells interact and are called the juxtaglomerular apparatus. a system that is instrumental in tubular glomerular feedback and the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, which we will discuss later. Putting together the anatomic relationships we have discussed, this summary image shows the nephron's orientation, vasculature, and location within the kidney.